First of all, what do you think is like the biggest difference when it comes to the mindset? Because we'll get into the numbers and all that stuff, but looking at the person you are right now compared to the person that I first met, what are you most proud of? Like, what's the biggest change?
The biggest change, there's a lot of things. I'm like a completely different person, if I'm totally honest. But I'd say the biggest change is that when I met you, that first kind of application call that I had for the mentorship, I was in a pretty bad state. So I can go like up to take let's say like a minute to go through like the context of my backstory. So I was 17. This is like start of last year. And I was going to do computing as my career. This the whole throughout the whole of high school. I was going to choose computing not for the reason of I like computing. I really don't, to be honest. I'm not passionate about it, but it was just I knew that's where the money was, but I never really understood what the day-to-day task or like the actual life would be. So it came to a point in high school where I applied for a job at Barclays at like a big bank as a software developer. I got the job, and then when I actually realized what they do day to day, and I talked to a few people that work there, I quickly realized that it was like the opposite of what I wanted to do in life. I knew that it was nothing that what I thought it would be. And it's kind of like a reality check. And then from that point, I was like really, I just became so mental in like a terrible mental state. Like everything, I would be pessimist. I'd be angry at everything. I'd always be stressed, like for no reason. Like I didn't have anything to be stressed about. I was 17 years old. The anxiety, all this kind of stuff. So like my mindset was just at the worst it possibly could have been. Like huge pessimist. Like it's everything. Like I think the worst of everything. Always get angry at stupid stuff. Like literally the smallest things I get angry at. So yeah, it's just really like a bad person in general. And then, so that was kind of me when I first met you. And then I'd say now, literally, my whole perspective on life and kind of the way I live my life is like changed. Like done like a 180 almost. Pretty much, like my whole life's completely changed, and the way I look at it. So now like I can now. So I had that vision. So I guess I could say this. My vision that I always had, deep down, was that I wanted to be the first person in my family that could kind of take my family out of financial struggle. They don't come from a wealthy family. My parents have done well to shield me from the financial struggles that they've had, but they have been really struggling, and I didn't realize that back then. But I did start to realize, and that's when I got really worried about how I could get there, and that I knew computing wasn't the way to get there for me. That's when I started to turn into that person. So then when I went through the mentorship, and then started to I went through the struggles through the business and actually started to do well. I then kind of my mind, I had like a roadmap on how to get out of that, how to get to that goal of saving my family from financial struggle. And that there the biggest stress that I've ever had was relieved. And then from there I started to meditate. I started to read about self-image, mindset, and then everything in terms of the way I'd think, my perspective on life, how I'd approach my day. In terms of, I wasn't a pessimist anymore. I literally haven't been angry in a long, long time. It's everything, the way I present myself, the way I speak, the way I do things, the way I come to relationships, or I talk about relationships. Literally everything has changed for the better. So it's a huge, huge difference in terms of the way I was, and I'm really proud of that change. I'm so happy that it happened this early, rather than happening like mid-20s or early 20s. I'm really happy that I went through that kind of mindset shift this early in my life.
Because was that always you mentioned that you had this very noble mission of taking your family out of poverty, right? Was that, well, not poverty, of financial struggle, not poverty but financial struggle. So was there any other drive? Because I know for you, I want to touch on the relationship side of things, and how important for you it is to feel like you're leveling up your network and all that stuff. Was there any like other vision that you had for your life?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, obviously I wanted to be rich. Like at the end of the day, like you could say all this stuff, but at that time when I was 17, I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to have a really good life and be the guy who's rolling around in Lambos and with a big house and a really good family. So obviously, yeah, nobody can deny that that's a huge part of why you start a business. You want to have a good life. So of course my family, I feel like getting them out of the situation that we were in was a big part of changing my life as well. Like obviously changing my life is a huge thing. Like for myself to be able to go to Dubai and mess around with Lambos, but my family still be in poverty. It's not that they're both kind of linked for me. Like I can't be happy without them being happy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So obviously like that, they were both in conjunction. kind of my family going out of the situation that they're in, so they don't have to worry about money, and then also myself never having to worry about money either, and kind of doing what I want, and kind of having a really good life. That was obviously a huge part. Also, a really big part for me was the reason I chose. This is going off on a tangent, kind of, but the reason I chose, a marketing agency over dropshipping, Amazon FBA, or whatever other businesses, is because I wanted to be a respectable business owner. Like, I wanted to be somebody that people look up to in business, and that is why I started this business model, because I knew it was like this for loads of reasons.
Right.
But that's why also that's another big driver of why I started this business model, an agency over anything else as well. Yeah.